Hello everyone, I am Amita from Nourish Talk, a platform for natural and holistic therapies. We are going to be talking about prebiotics and probiotics for your gut health. You know, I'm obsessed with gut health. You can see that so many topics are coming on gut health, but you know what? Gut health is so important. If we don't take care of our gut, guess what's going to happen? Right? All of us know about our gut and brain connection. I think everyone knows about it by now. So that's what we're going to be focused on, gut. You know, we are going information on our gut health. And joining me is James and Dahlia Marin. They are registered dietitians from, there you are. Hi there.
Hi,
Great to see
everybody.
both of you. I'm so honored to have two people join today. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank
Thank you
you.
so much for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. So I was just telling our viewers the topic is on prebiotic and probiotics for gut health. And joining me is James and Dahlia Marin. Both of them are registered dietitians from Los Angeles, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself because I don't want to say something wrong. And
Yeah, yeah, no, we'll totally introduce ourselves. Yeah, I'm James Marin. This is Dahlia Marin. We're both holistic registered dietitians, and yeah, so I'm kind of the more environmental, integrative side. But again, we focus a lot on plant-based nutrition, and I love to always help my patients kind of understand the environmental aspects of what's going on and how what we call, and again, with the focus on gut health and the gut microbiome, the exposome, which is what we're exposed to and what our gut microbes are exposed to and how that affects your gut health.
And yeah,
Um,
I'm Dahlia Marin. I'm also a registered dietitian nutritionist, specializing in gut health for adults and children. Because as
oh,
much as I love helping adults improve their gut health,
yeah.
I love helping families prevent gut issues for their children. And I'm very integrative. And so I love practicing integrative functional nutrition because we know that when Eastern and Western medicine meet, that is where
Mhm.
beautiful things happen. And so
mhm,
love practicing in that space, in that middle ground, and love helping my patients heal with each meal.
mhm.
I love that you work with the kids. You know, we haven't had many guests that help the kids. So I think we should, because the kids have so many problems, you know, when they're growing up with their, like the stomach, right? Most of the problems is a stomach ache. So I
Yes,
love, yeah, love what you do. And
I
so
always
let's, yeah, go ahead, please.
I always ask each of my patients, even though most of them are adults, I do see kids. I always ask them, tell me when your problems began. And it's
Yeah.
almost always that when I'm poking and prodding, they say, oh, yeah, actually, I always was constipated as a child. Oh, yeah, I took tons of antibiotics as a child. Oh, yeah, I always had a stomach ache. I was that one kid who always had a stomach ache. And so if we can catch it that early, I think that that's where
Yeah.
everything improves.
No,
Yeah.
I agree with you. Most of us now we are adults. If you think about it, you know, I also remember as a kid, I used to have all kind of problems, but we never really paid attention to it at that time. Just pop a pill and then you're okay. Um,
Mhm.
so let's talk about prebiotic. I mean, the topic for today is prebiotic and probiotic. So let's come back to our topic. We'll start with the prebiotic and then we'll go to the probiotics.
Yeah, and I would say to keep it simple, I mean, it's very simple. It's essentially you have little organisms in your body and you need to feed those organisms, right? So
Yeah.
it's essentially the prebiotics you could think of are the food for your microorganisms in and around your body. And the probiotics are essentially these beneficial microbes that develop from eating. And a lot of the times I like our patients to think of the gut microbiome as almost like a big city, right? A big city has a population and it
Yeah.
also has infrastructure. If
Okay.
you don't have the right infrastructure, you cannot support the population. And so that's really prebiotics, probiotics, and symbiotics, which is the synergistic effect of all these things that we're doing working together to have a vibrant, thriving, healthy ecosystem or city.
Hmm.
And it's really that simple, but then really it's then what do I eat? Okay, what do I do? What are these things, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, and that's where you get to fermented foods will have technically, I mean, technically it's hard to say they're probiotic, but I mean probiotic is saying we definitively know they're gonna have a beneficial effect. And we don't know that. We don't know everybody. Everyone is so different. If you drink this kombucha, will it have a beneficial effect on your body? Who knows? But maybe it will. Probably it will. It could. But but things like miso, kombucha, pickled items, fermented items like kimchi and sauerkraut, those already have these probiotics
Yeah.
growing on them, right? We're fermenting them, we're growing the population. Now, if you eat things like artichoke, if you eat things like, garlic,
beets,
onions,
mm-hmm.
things like that, oats, you're now, those are the items that are going to feed these beneficial microbes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And people don't realize that we are more microbes than we are human. And so we have over 100 trillion types of microbes. I think a lot of people believe that we have just bacteria within our microbiome. And that is not the case. We have, yes, bacteria, but there's also yeast. We have viruses living peacefully within us. We have fungus. We have archaea. So there's a lot more to that story. And yes, although it seems simple, if we're just bacteria and we eat probiotics, then everything should be good. But you're not just bacteria. So you want to make sure that you're feeding every single member of that society or every single type of animal living in that, jungle or the city. And that way they can all thrive. And so probiotics are just one part of the puzzle, like James had mentioned, and they are a ferment that can contain some living bacteria that can possibly help grow more bacteria. But you want to ensure, one, you're feeding them once they grow, and you're feeding all the other members of the society. So that's where prebiotics come in. And this comes from having a wide array of different types of fiber and resistant starch in the diet in those prebiotics.
And something really cool, I know we touched on kids earlier. You mentioned, not many practitioners help with kids. I have to mention one of the coolest prebiotics, which is breast milk. And I would say a huge chunk. So one third of the makeup of breast milk is what's called HMOs. It's not GMOs, don't worry, everybody. But it's HMOs. It's human milk oligosaccharides. And these oligosaccharides are prebiotics. And these specific prebiotics are only found in human milk. And so these are only found in human breast milk, and they will actually only support a certain strain of microbes that at least what we're finding are extremely beneficial for children the first 1,000 days of life. And they've actually shown if these kids have enough of this strain of microbes, if they're getting enough of these HMOs, they have significantly better outcomes. They have less colic and less inflammation and less, childhood diseases, asthma and ear infections and et cetera, et cetera. So I had to bring that up as one of the best prebiotics you can do, especially if you're thinking about having kids or you're pregnant or you do have young ones, is breastfeeding. I mean, that is an amazing prebiotic in and of itself. Yeah.
No, I love it. I love your environmental thing coming up, that the way you describe it's a city. It's your environmentalist that's talking about the city. And I love the analogy. It's so simple for people to understand about the city and the infrastructure. And the funny thing is, you talk about the breast milk. I watched a show, and one guy, he's pumping iron, and someone tells me, oh, breast milk is the best. And he goes and finds a lady who's breastfeeding her baby, makes a deal with her.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, there's a lot of that. I mean, a lot of people are paying money for really quality breast milk because, I mean, there's so much in it, and we're still finding more and more. But I mean, I would assume that it could help. I mean, you never know. Yeah.
Well, definitely for the babies. And like James said, there were several great studies that did show that in those first 1,000 days of life, which is about 3 years of a child's life, their microbiome is developing at its most rapid pace. So our gut is really, really going to develop itself in utero, and then mostly in those first 3 years of life. So I'm so passionate about teaching families to not practice this kid food, adult food. So if mom and dad are eating probiotics and prebiotics, then the kids should be getting them just as well. And they get an extra benefit because if one is breastfed, and World Health Organization recommends gold standard breastfeeding is 2 years. And so if a child's breastfed, then they're getting that amazing foundational infrastructure in their city. So you're not trying to just build these new probiotic buildings on a crumbling infrastructure.
Yeah.
And, you know, going back to probiotics, because I'm often asked that. I'm often asked, well, what probiotic should I take? What probiotic should I give to my child? It's not that simple. They're called supplements for a reason, and we always say this. If they were meant to replace all of the incredible benefits that prebiotic whole foods, like we had mentioned, those oats, onions, artichokes, leeks, garlic, chia, all of these other incredible prebiotic fibers and starches and carbohydrates are meant to contain, then they would be called a replacement. But they're not. They're called the supplement. And supplements really should be individualized, which is why you never see us on Instagram saying, buy this supplement, this is perfect. Because even if it's something I take, I always say that. I always say, this is what I personally take, because we are all so bio-individual. And so for one supplement to work for everybody, that would be absurd, because I don't know what has happened in someone else's microbiome. I barely even know what's going on in my own sometimes. And so you really want to ensure that you're not just randomly taking things. And one of our areas of specialty is something called SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. This is where there's an overcolonization and overabundance and overgrowth of microbes, whether it is bacteria or it could be fungus or yeast in the small intestine where they don't belong. And so you get severely bloated, very gassy, change in bowel habits. And oftentimes patients will come to me and say, yeah, I've tried so many things. I tried taking all these probiotics. It just made me feel so much worse. And if you're having an overgrowth of something, there's an out of control fire in your small intestine, to kind of give an analogy. You don't want to be putting more gasoline, right? You don't want to be adding more fuel to that. And so probiotics are probably the last thing that you want to do. If you are having really excessive gas and bloating, you want to work with a practitioner to figure out what is the root cause of some of these symptoms, what is actually happening, instead of just saying, okay, let me try all these different supplements, because it might make you feel exponentially worse, especially probiotics. So we seldom recommend probiotics.
Oh my God. No, I think it's important information what you said, but all of us do that. We don't know, right? I'm an end user, and I do the same thing, what you just said. If I have a gassiness, I'll go and I'll start drinking kombucha and something, and thinking that, oh, I've done a very smart thing, but that's kind of dumb, actually, right? To your point.
I mean, it varies. I mean, you just have to be careful. You have to understand what's going on. I think that's a benefit of working with someone knowledgeable, right? Working with someone who's seen this many, many times, and can give you kind of a roadmap. Just because, going back to that analogy, I mean, staying on with probiotics, you might have SIBO, and you're taking a probiotic and you're getting more bloated, or you're not feeling well, and you're going, oh my gosh, but I bought this, $40 or $100 probiotic. It's supposed to help me. What's going on? And then you try a different probiotic, or you try a different supplement, and nothing's getting better. And that's where, you have to have a proper roadmap. Going back to the city analogy, it could also be like, these probiotics, they have billions and billions of units, or you're getting maybe billions and billions of only 7 strains of these bacteria. And that's like taking a small town infrastructure, right? Remember, these probiotics are only talking about your population. They are not addressing your infrastructure. So it's very similar to, imagine the smallest town in any country, and you're putting the population of Dubai in it, or you're putting the population of New York City in it. There's not enough toilets. There's not enough sewer systems. There's not enough, apartment buildings. The population will go, what the heck am I doing here? And it'll leave, but it'll probably leave a big mess for your body to clean up, potentially. So, it's important to know what you're doing and realize, wow, it's not just the probiotics that will help. It's also the structure and function of my gut. What have I been doing the last 5, 10, 15 years? Am I ready to support diverse microbe communities? And if the answer is no, then this expensive, no matter what type of probiotic, probably won't work that well, so yeah.
And I like to always kind of speak to the science too, as dietitians. And so last year they released a meta-analysis, which is basically a study that looks at several studies on a specific
Yeah.
topic. So a
Yeah.
meta-analysis came out on probiotics out of Israel. It was called the Mosaic study, and they compared results of users of probiotics, and they concluded that more often than not, probiotic users had bloating, fatigue, and brain fog.
Oh,
And
wow.
there were, yeah, so probiotics reigned king for a long time. And
Yeah.
I used to recommend them very regularly. I used to tell my patients, oh, you took antibiotics, you should take your probiotics. You should
Hmm.
use all these probiotics all the
Yeah.
time. You're having gut issues. The
Yeah.
studies used to support probiotics, but and
Hmm.
that was until last year. So updated science came out and showed that perhaps we're overutilizing and over recommending probiotics.
Hmm.
And they even then did another study. There's another study that came out, and they wanted to study the effects of probiotic use following antibiotics, since all of us practitioners had been recommending that for, the
Yeah.
guidelines that we thought were accurate. And so they took 3 groups of people
Hmm.
and they administered antibiotics to all 3 groups of people.
Hmm.
In one of the groups, they had taken a fecal microbiota sample from each of the members of the group
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
In the second group, they administered probiotics. In the third group, they did nothing after they had given them antibiotics. So
Okay.
the one who recovered their original microbiome the quickest, of course, was the one who had their fecal microbiota transplant. You got to retransplant. So they got it back the quickest in this 3-month study. Then the second group who
Hmm.
recovered their microbiome was not the one who was using probiotics. It was the one
Wow.
who did nothing. The third group who was given probiotics actually in the 3 months never fully recovered their microbiome in that time.
Hmm.
And the researchers said, of course, new follow-up data needed to be released and follow-up information needed to be collected, but they were assuming that yes, you had kind of wiped everything out. And now instead of kind of just letting things rebalance,
Hmm.
you're dumping a whole new
More.
population into this damaged city that maybe just experienced a tsunami. And so
Hmm.
instead of
Hmm.
kind of just rebuilding first, you're
Yeah.
moving all the people back in. And so, like James said, you're taking a lot of a few things when we have maybe a few things of a lot in
Yeah.
reality in their
Yeah.
system. We have thousands and thousands and thousands of strains of bacteria and these other microbes. So taking a probiotic that has 7 strains and
Hmm.
500 billion colony forming units might overwhelm your gut a little bit. In certain instances, of course, we'll recommend them. So certain instances of things like pouchitis and necrotizing enterocolitis in babies,
Hmm.
very individualized cases with our patients, but as kind of a blanket recommendation, kombucha, or maybe you were having
Yeah.
probiotic foods. And that can be different because oftentimes these probiotic foods are containing these symbiotics, like James was saying. So take a sauerkraut, for example. Sauerkraut or kimchi, these are great examples where, yes, they're fermented. They've had ferments added to them. They've had some of these live strains of bacteria. So they contain probiotics, or they're supposed to,
Yeah.
but they also contain prebiotics because they have
Hmm.
that fiber from the cabbage and the carrots and whatever else is being added to them. So there's a very beautiful synergistic symbiotic effect in a whole probiotic food like that.
And to even go deeper into symbiotics, you're also going to get nutrients in there. You're going to
Yeah.
get some vitamins, you're going to get some minerals, you're going to get flavonoids of different types, most notably in this case with cabbage, like sulforaphane, which is great for the liver and things like that.
Hmm.
So you're going to get added benefit. And there's still so many studies coming out. Like there's a new randomized controlled trial meta-analysis I want to look at for IBS and
Yeah.
pre and probiotics. So there's
Yeah.
always new information coming out. And so it's so interesting. I think it's great, but I think the overall safe message is know you're an individual, work with your care team
Yeah.
and see what's best for you. It's definitely not a one size fits all. I say we all look like we're all fingers from afar, but as we move closer, we go, whoa, look at all those unique fingerprints, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's very easy to go, we're all the same, we're all just fingers, let's all do the same thing. But as you look closer, it's quite different in our approach, and it can make a huge difference in the outcomes of those approaches. So yeah,
Hmm.
I think that's so cool.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, I think you made a very good point. I mean, we are all going back to the Eastern form of medicine. Look at all of us. We are all doing yoga. Ayurveda, although it's a foreign word still in a lot of Western countries, but talks about personalized nutrition aspect of what we are talking about. There's a DNA testing happening, right? That's also saying the same thing. Chinese medicine saying the same thing. So, all of us are speaking the same language. We're using different kind of words, from outside.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's what you're saying. So let's talk about, I think it was an amazing analogy, and the way you describe the prebiotics and the probiotics. I love the way you shared the science and the research, because that's what we are trying to do, is really show the science and the research behind the natural medicine. So let's talk about the immunity, right? The correlation. And we are all talking about, immunity has to be good, otherwise you will get COVID, and God forbid, all those things, right? So relationship of gut with the immunity, I think that's something that a lot of people want to understand. I've been doing shorter session here. We don't want the whole 1 hour, just a smaller session, so people can at least understand.
Yeah, I think overall, the overall idea, it's important for everyone to understand. I mean, what you're eating is not
Yeah.
just calories, right? I think I mean, we're so deep in nutrition and healing and with our practice and seeing patients, we
Yeah.
sometimes forget. I mean, there are probably huge amounts of people that just think I eat for energy or something, like
Yeah.
I eat food just for energy. And it's like, well, no, you eat food for all the variety of vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients and fiber. And then on top of that, the things you can't digest are then digested by your microbes and make short chain fatty acids and different proteins. So, I mean, the complexity here is quite immense, especially even if we're just talking about the immune system.
Yeah.
I think for every second that goes by, a trillion chemical reactions, if
Wow.
not more, are going on within the body. I mean, you think of all the chemical reactions going on and the trillions of cells and the trillions of microbes. I mean, it just blows my mind. And
Mm-hmm.
that is all facilitated by nutrition. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
facilitated by what you are putting in your body, whether it's actual food or liquid, or you're intaking sunlight, or you're breathing. That is
Yeah.
all the components for these chemical reactions. So it is not far-fetched to then say what I do in those aspects will affect my immune system.
Yeah.
And 70% of the immune system is localized in your gut microbiome, in your
Mm-hmm.
gut.
Yeah.
And so, it is there where then we are saying, okay, wow, we're finding this out. What does that mean? Well, it goes to barrier integrity, right? The gut is the hub, it's the nexus of where you're coming into contact with your environment.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the points I like to make is if you live in a big urban city with lots
Yeah.
of cars and lots of pollution, you are breathing you breathe in that pollution, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people don't realize your nose and your throat are connected, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when you breathe, that oxygen is going into your lungs,
Yeah.
but you also do what? You gulp and you swallow.
Yeah.
So you are taking particulate matter and you are putting it into your gut. You are putting it into your gut microbiome.
Mm-hmm.
And that is important as well.
Yeah.
So this integrity is there to not just protect you from the outside environment, but
Mm-hmm.
to make sure we are connected to our outside environment. It
Yeah.
is a very thin layer to say this is the blood of my body and this is the outside gut of my body. Why would humans be made like this? It's because we are supposed to be connected, and this integrity is made up by what you eat. If you're eating healthy, resistant starches, if you're eating soluble and insoluble fibers, you are maintaining this healthy integrity. If you are not, you are getting what's called gut permeability, which
I see.
opens up the door to
Yeah.
immune reactions. Again, once you open up this door, waiting right underneath is your entire immune system, because they
Mm-hmm.
know if anything gets through that's not supposed to,
Yeah.
attack, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Activate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it is highly, highly important that we understand that our gut health is literally our immune health, and it is connected to what we eat. And we can just continue down the line and follow, okay, what are you eating?
Mm-hmm.
Where's the food grown?
Yeah.
How's the soil that it's grown on?
Oh my God.
And
Yeah.
continue it. But
Yeah.
to keep it simple, it's it's ensuring that you're eating foods that are the most nutrient dense, because it's not just maintaining the gut health, it's also maintaining the functions of the immune system, making sure your neurotransmitters are firing, making sure we can make the appropriate amount of proteins for our immune system. And that's all going to encompass vitamin A and vitamin C and vitamin E and vitamin D and all, I mean, all these things. And are you going to eat Frito chips and hot dogs, or are you going to eat sweet potatoes with a yummy curry and quinoa
Yeah.
with chickpeas, right?
That's
It's a
right.
very different meal, and one is going to have way more nutrients to supply your body with everything you need. One is actually going to do harm to your body. And when you look at the majority of people in our society, and I mean, we're in the United States, we're in a more first world society, a lot more people are eating, the chicken tenders, the hot dogs, the pizza. I just looked at, was it Instacart, the food
Yeah.
delivery.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they will actually give you data on their most popular food items.
Wow.
Their most popular food items right now during this pandemic, where we're seeing more people who need immune health, their most popular items are chicken fingers,
Oh my God.
French fries, and macaroni and cheese.
Oh my God.
And
Yeah.
ideally, we could be seeing, we should be seeing healthier foods, right? Maybe some organic greens and some
Yeah.
salads and some, healthier lentils and whole grains, but we're not seeing that, right? So it's a big problem. It's a big problem. Anything to
Well,
add to that, Laura?
No, I think
Okay.
that, yeah, that was quite a bit. And in damaging, James was saying your microbiome, like he said, that there is 70+% of our immune cells that reside
yeah.
within and around, right? You have
Yeah.
your mucosa associated lymphoid tissue, you have your gut associated lymphoid tissue. So, it can very much trigger. So as he was saying, I just feel like we want to shed more light on this, that, we can do things to strengthen this
Yeah.
enteric immune system. You
Yeah.
can do things to really up your guard, right? And you can also do things to reduce your risk of chronic disease. During this time, we know that those who are suffering from chronic disease
Yeah.
have higher rates of morbidity and mortality. And
Yeah.
so you want to really, at this time, be avoiding eating those chicken tenders and those fries and those highly processed foods, and doing your due diligence and doing your part for yourself, your
Yeah.
family, to try your best. No one really knows the outcomes of what's going to go on, but we can all try our best, especially at this time, right? So we
Yes.
can
Yeah.
all be trying our best to incorporate as many prebiotic foods, as many of these incredible resistant starches. We can be doing our best to nourish our gut microbiome, our immune system, everything that we can at our very, very best. And nutrition is the solid foundation on that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what do you recommend? Just on a high level, few foods that, or few things that people should load up on. Like you talked about sweet potatoes. I mean, that's great.
Yeah.
What other things that we should do, like as an end user?
I think that oftentimes, people are focused on supplements. Like, oh, I've
Yeah.
gotten so many messages. What supplements should I take for my immune system? And it's like,
Yes.
food should be first. So
Yeah.
make sure you're doing the food first. Vitamin C is something that's come up a lot. And,
Yeah.
some studies were showing that high dose vitamin C could be helpful. And so if you want to look for vitamin C rich foods, of course, citrus. And right now we're in California, we're in Orange County. That's very much in season at
Yeah.
this time. So get your citrus. But there is even more vitamin C in some other foods. Bell peppers, for
Yes.
example,
Yeah.
green, yellow, and red. So get in your bell peppers too. Get in broccoli. You want to get in your crucifers because they contain antioxidants and they also contain vitamin C. So anything that contains, that sulforaphane, that cabbage, bok choy, you want to get in your Brussels sprouts. Those are also high in vitamin C. In respect to fruits with vitamin C, guavas for us right now are in season here in California. Not a lot of people eat guavas. I'm trying to uplift
We love
guavas.
guavas.
I grew
Yeah.
up eating guavas. My parents were Middle Eastern, and so
Yeah.
all my Middle Eastern people know all about guavas, but I want
And
others to really embrace them.
And just on the point of guava, for
Yeah.
those of you that have eaten guava, you may spit out the seeds. We recommend you eat the seeds. I mean,
Oh
if you're too
wow.
much strong,
swallow them.
You could
Yeah,
swallow
yeah,
them
yeah,
if you
yeah,
can't crunch them, but I know like we like to crunch them or we like to blend them up in our smoothies. That is
yeah,
going to give you great fiber.
That's
That is going
great
to be an
prebiotic.
additional bang of prebiotics and probiotics eventually, and just give
Mm.
you that extra fiber so you get double benefit for that. But
Yes.
since you mentioned guavas,
And I mentioned they're in season. And so
yes,
I give these tips. Like, my dad is always bringing over bags and bags of guava. And James is not the biggest fan of the smell, I would say. But I love them. And so I make use. I'm like, okay, I'm going to freeze them because
yeah,
when the season's over, I want to still have my amazing vitamin C, my fiber, my guavas. And so these things that we might be missing the seasons of, freeze them. Summer just passed. We would get cases of organic strawberries at the
yeah,
farmer's market when we would
yeah,
go. They're in our freezer still. So we still are pulling those and utilizing some of that and still tapping into those summer fruits. And then, zinc is another one that's often talked about quite often. And so zinc is abundantly found if you are able to consume a variety of different types of plant proteins. So
mhm,
tofu is one of the great sources, or even soy. So
mhm,
organic edamame, or you can do tempeh, or, any soy products. And then different nuts and seeds and
yeah,
legumes. So
yes,
chia, hemp, flax, you can do walnuts, pumpkin seeds. These are wonderful zinc sources as well. And like I said, legumes, a variety of legumes.
yes,
If you're
yes.
having trouble breaking down legumes, go to our page, Married to Health, and you can find our legume digestion spectrum. So maybe you can
Okay.
start low and slow with low fiber, but get in those legumes and mushrooms.
and I would say, and going back to, we talked about synergistic effects of pre and probiotics.
Mhm.
This is
Yeah,
synergistic effects of nutrition. And if you eat lentils or you're eating tofu, you're not just getting zinc, right? You're getting a plethora of other vitamins and minerals and nutrients that are going to work together with zinc and work together and have a synergistic effect in the body. That
hmm,
is where, that's what I cringe at when some of my patients bring me I'm just taking zinc. It's like, well, where do you find that in nature? Do you find
yeah,
a food that just has zinc in nature and you eat that food and it just gives you zinc? You don't really find that. So we have these, what I call, would you rather have these amazing Christmas presents,
hmm,
or you're just going to have this one little piece of a toy, right? You're just going to get a wheel. And it's
hmm,
like kids would be like, I want the gift, I want the present, right?
of
That's
course.
what food is. Food is like this amazing present. It's wrapped in so many unique layers, and it is this amazing gift for your body,
Hmm,
and
Mhm.
it's just so complex,
And
and
people
that's
don't
what's
realize,
great.
they think we have good intentions oftentimes, because
yeah,
yeah, patients will do that and they'll be like, I'm taking 50 milligrams of zinc, not realizing that, that could actually offset other nutrients.
yeah, yeah,
Studies have shown that if you're taking high dose zinc for prolonged periods of time, that
yeah,
can decrease your copper levels, that can cause and provoke iron deficiency, anemia. And so you want to be mindful and again, work with a care team. And if you are taking supplements, you should be working with somebody who can make sure that they're appropriate for you.
yeah,
Because usually, like a daily multi and an omega and vitamin D, that's
yeah,
fine. But if you're taking 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 things, one, that concerns me because you really shouldn't be taking that many supplements. And two, you want to make sure that they're appropriate for you and that they're not causing other side effects.
Mhm.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I feel, I'm an end user. I am not a, dietitian or doctor or anything. But the thing is, you walk into any of the supermarkets like Costco, Whole Foods, and there is aisles and aisles of all kind of
Mhm.
supplementation and all kind of things like, oh, it will make you do this, do that. As an end user, talking about the end user, you're so kind of bombarded with all these marketing things that are happening on your day-to-day life when you go to any of the grocery stores for that matter, and then you say, oh, let me pick it up. That's
Yeah.
like the human kind of a response. Oh, let me pick it up and try it out. And you don't know, like James said, you're really now spoiling your whole country inside. Your population is going haywire here because you just picked up something and you threw the gasoline on your population. But we don't know.
Mhm.
And that's why, we just don't know. A lot of users, I can bet on it, they just don't understand what you're talking about. And it's amazing what you're telling all of us.
Right. Thank you. And I think if I could just add something to that, I mean, we try to keep it simple, and that's why,
Yeah,
like, what's the most simple and the safest
yeah,
and something that has the most research, and what have we been doing for thousands of years? We've
yeah,
been eating healthy food. And
yes,
so if you find yourself grabbing stuff at Costco or at the store, or like, oh, let me try this chewy gummy
Yeah.
supplement or
Yeah.
this
We
little
all
thing,
try. Yeah.
but and then you look at the rest of your cart and it doesn't have lentils and tofu and
Yeah.
greens and other. Let's
Work
flip that,
backwards.
right? First try the lentils and the
Yeah.
greens and the
Yeah.
cabbage, and then try the supplements later, right? Just flip it around.
But
That's what
we
we
do
say.
know because we we work with those who usually follow plant-based diets. So sometimes
Yeah.
people come to us and they're like, but I am doing that. I am eating the lentils and the
Yeah.
greens and I'm doing everything and I'm
Yeah.
having issues.
Yeah.
And so that's where we come in and we try to understand what's the root of this issue, because
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, most people should be able to digest and incorporate and break down these plants in a very beautiful way, because we know it's not just what you eat, it's what you digest,
That's right.
absorb, and the byproducts of that
Yeah.
process. And so most people are able to facilitate that beautifully.
Yeah.
For those who are not, you want to figure out what's going on sooner rather than later, so that way we're not then dealing with all these digestive issues and then taking a ton of supplements on top of that and not even absorbing well from the supplements, and then kind of just getting deeper and deeper into that. And
Right.
we want others to feel empowered, right? I think we're in an age where it's almost shunned. You're looked down on sometimes for wanting to be empowered and look for, this
Yeah.
nutrition knowledge. And we as dietitians who look at both, we have the, real life
Yeah.
experience of working with patients. We've
Yeah.
both been dietitians now for 8 years and
Wow.
worked with thousands and thousands of
Yeah.
patients, and have the academic background and continually are updating our knowledge. I love when my patients come in and they're informed, and sometimes they're almost embarrassed to tell me, or they're like, sorry, I'm asking so many questions. Sorry, and I'm like, no,
Yeah.
I love that you've done your research. I don't
Yeah.
think anyone should ever be ashamed of doing that. And if your provider makes you feel ashamed of it, or they're annoyed of you for asking questions or knowing things, might not be the right provider for you.
Yeah.
It's a provider-patient relationship should not be like this, right? They should
Yes.
not be
Yes.
authoritarian over your
Yeah.
health. You
Yeah.
should have a synergistic relationship, because we always say our patients are our bosses. We are going to follow their lead. We are here to serve them. As a
Yeah.
healthcare provider, if you're not there to serve the needs of your patient and respect them and really incorporate their questions into your practice, then that's a problem. So I highly encourage people to do their research. But be cautious with what you're implementing, and always get a second opinion of someone who you really trust and you feel very comfortable with.
No, I think you made a good point. There's a question coming up. I'm sorry I couldn't read the top of the question. Someone is asking about something empty stomach in the morning. Is it good for my gut
I
biota?
see it.
Okay, so yeah, someone is saying I'm used to taking strong tea, empty stomach in the morning. Is it good for my gut biota? Okay, that's the question.
Yeah, this is a great question. And I would say it depends. It depends what type of tea you're taking. By strong tea, I'm guessing you're meaning something that's high in caffeine. It really depends. For some people, the tannins that are found in, black teas or green teas or some of these other teas sometimes cause nausea. And so you want to then say, how do I feel? Am I feeling well doing this? But in general, if you're not feeling nauseated, you feel like it's not bloating you, causing any discomfort, urgent bowel movements, then sure, it can be perfectly fine to drink some tea in the morning. And tea also can be a good source of prebiotics as well.
Great.
As well as phytonutrients and antioxidants, as well as you're giving your body that hydration it needs. I would say hydration is key in the morning.
Yeah.
Not enough people are hydrating in the morning and kind of waking your body up, giving yourself that hydration, that water it needs, waking up your bowels and your gut lining with that hydration. I mean, your gut absorbs fluid so quickly, it loves it. It is, I mean, you've been asleep for maybe 6+ hours. Hopefully it's 8 hours, but you've been asleep for so long not hydrating. So just drinking that liquid is important, but making sure, it's a healthy liquid and you feel good with it. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. And anything, I think, and someone was also commenting on the garlic in the morning. I don't know if you want to comment on the garlic in the morning. I was just reading Like,
Garlic in the morning? I mean, I've heard of garlic. I mean, garlic in general is great.
yeah,
However, you could have we have patients regularly tell us, garlic just bloats me or wrecks me,
yeah,
or
yeah,
especially
yeah.
someone that does have like a dysbiosis or an overgrowth. Garlic might not be your friend right now.
Okay.
Um, I know oh, sorry, I don't know if we're freezing a little bit, but garlic might not be your friend, but that doesn't mean to stop having foods in that garlic family, right? In
Got
that
it.
allicin family. So what you can do is try other types of garlic-like foods like shallots or even leeks or something
Okay.
along that
Yeah,
spectrum of green onions,
yeah,
because really it is those aromatic, I love that word, Dahlia knows I love that word, those aromatic properties, right? When you cut into that garlic, there's garlic
yes,
being cut into, right? When you cut into that onion, ooh, it can make you cry, right?
yes.
So these are these very aromatic chemicals within these foods. These are the same chemicals that help to balance our gut microbiome. Do have this dysbiosis or this overgrowth, you might be experiencing some of this
Yeah,
discomfort associated with trying to rebalance your gut. And you go, oh, I can't do garlic. Well,
yeah,
it's not you that can't do garlic. It might be your microbes and maybe what you've done in the past a little wrong that is causing this dysbiosis. So we always say it's usually food that's not the problem. It's your gut. It's your
yeah,
body. It's what
yeah.
it's what you've done. So give food that patience it deserves. And maybe you try the garlic crush, maybe you try it heated, maybe you try it roasted, and it's a little bit more tolerable. Yeah.
Good
That's great.
job.
Yeah, go ahead.
Whether
You
it's in the
want
morning or any time of the day, it's going to have its great benefits. I know some people wake up and they'll do garlic and turmeric, and they might do apple cider vinegar,
yeah,
and those.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's interesting. I think, like James was saying, those can kind of wake up the bowels, and they do all contain really good pre and probiotics in them and ferment.
Hmm.
great, great, great. Well, thank you so much. I think it's been amazing information that both of you have brought forward. A lot of us were just eating wrong things, and that's because of all the media that tells you, okay, start drinking kefir, start doing this. And all of us are like, okay, let me grab this, let me grab that. But amazing information, very useful information. I hope our viewers find the
Mhm.
same way. We would love to bring both of you back on different topics if you like that.
Yeah.
Support bite-sized stuff. Anything else both of you would like to add before we wrap up today?
No, if anyone is looking for us, you can find us on our website, marriedtohealth.com. We offer personalized consultations,
Mhm.
and we would love to be part of anyone's journey. And stay tuned. We always have people messaging us, asking us for recipes, and we're going to have some exciting things coming out before
That's
you
Mhm.
know it.
Yeah.
that's
Cool. Thank you so much. We'd love to be back anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for watching, and let us know your comments. I see quite a few people are watching. So that's great. Keep, help us share these sessions. We are bringing science and evidence in natural medicine. That's what we are bringing, and
Mhm.
bringing all these guests to help us, all of us, including me. I don't know anything. So help us. So thank you so much for being with us. With that, I'd like to wrap up this session. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank
thank you.
you.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.